Hey Skyfarers, and welcome to Aethercast, the Kharadron Overlords channel and podcast. We're back after some months, but we're back with a great show, and we've got some cool guests to chat about KO with. So we are joined by Mr. Matt Barker. Hi, Matt.
Hey, how's it going, Lee? Glad to be back. Glad to have Aethercast back. Let's rock and roll.
Glad to have you back on the show. And making his first appearance on the show, but hopefully he'll be doing well with KO again in the future, Mr. Ian McAleese.
Yeah, McAleese. Thanks, Lee. Nice to be on.
As soon as
so close.
I said it, I thought I should have checked how to pronounce this before the show started.
You did better than most.
That's okay. You saved the boss for the last one. Good luck with my last name, buddy.
well, making his third appearance on the show, so in theory, I should have learned how to pronounce it by now. Mr. Jeremy Veyssaire.
Pretty close.
Pretty close. Pretty close is good enough, I think, because I'm not very good at pronouncing most words I already know. So there we go. So before we dive into things, is there any news? Just old world stuff.
Spec pre-order is coming up.
Yeah.
That's not KO related.
No, nothing dwarf related.
I will say I am more excited about the Orc Choppa bottle opener than I am about anything Beck or Age of Sigmar.
That thing looks like it's going to open only one beer and then break, by the way.
It does look so tiny, doesn't it? It looks so tiny.
And awful.
I have to admit, I didn't even realize it was a bottle opener. I just saw, oh, there's like an orc axe thing.
I felt like it was an accident, right? Like they designed it, and then some guy in the warehouse, he was just like pop the beer open with it, and they're like, oh yeah, that also serves as a bottle opener.
Yeah, I mean, you can open a bottle with a knife if you need to. So, so you can pretty much do it with any like metal implement. But I mean, that's pretty cool actually. If there's a bottle opener. If it works.
We did get one dwarf thing. It's a commemorative story anniversary model. It's a runesmitter, but it's in the new style of the warband that just came out. So I think that's a cool indication that the new Fire Slayer stuff will be in that kind of like theme.
Yeah.
Baraki of the Gilded Key.
Yeah. I do like the new Fire Slayers where they got the Dracoff cloaks. They're pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's better than loincloths.
Gotta
easier to tell them apart.
Easier to tell them apart. We'll see about that when they all look like they have dragon cloth.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, like, oh, the hero you care about is the one with the cloak. But so once they've all got cloaks, it's like, well.
I do like how he's holding the key, like, behold, I have a key.
Yeah, that's cool. And in some sort of KO news, CanCon is happening. Well, sort of happened now on time zones and stuff, and I think KO's just won it. So that's cool.
Ooh,
I think
spicy.
It's either that or they've just on Monday. I'm not sure. They're in the future. No, they must have done both days. I'm sure Kron said that KO had won it, but not by Kron.
Was it in BCP anywhere, or did you get?
It's on stats and ladders, but when I tried to look a minute ago, it only was showing day one. But
okay, well that's
they're in the future, so they must have had both days.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So no, I think Nathan Thompson won that.
Oh, nice.
Cool. With 40 Arcanauts, I believe. Lots of Arcanauts.
Yeah, those are some hefty screens.
We'll be talking about screens and lack of screens in a minute. Cool. So let's start talking about the tournament. First of all, it was a very big tournament.
Yeah.
Does anybody know exactly how many players there were for Age of Sigmar?
Like 370 something, right?
Yeah, somewhere in this neighborhood.
It was, I think, 341. I asked Scott who actually played.
Was the final tally?
Yeah.
I think there were 410 tickets sold. So
yeah, that's a lot of people that didn't go in the end.
So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was better than last year at LVO, where they expected a number of people to drop and not as many people, and they didn't have any tables, and I was
Ooh.
one of those people, round one, who showed up and just didn't have a table, and they were, luckily the staff was just like on it, and they scrambled and they got terrain and a mat and a table, but it was just like, they're like, oh shoot, not as many people dropped as we expected.
Yeah, 343. Yeah, that's exactly.
There you go. So about 350.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's a very hefty tournament, which explains why we had 2 KO players that went 5-0. So congratulations to you both.
Thanks.
Although I think Jeremy technically went 6-0 or 6-1. Due to some extra shenanigans we'll talk about in a bit. Ian's and Jeremy's lists. We're gonna just do some honourable mentions. I just want to bring up Scott Adams' list because Scott went 4-1. It's a really cool result. He had Barak Zilfin, and actually, because we're going to look at Matt's list in a minute, between Matt, Ian, Jeremy, and Scott, I think you all had different skyports. So that's pretty cool. Right. So yeah, Scott 1970 points, 1 drop. Endremaster on foot with Stormcaller and Arcane Tome, Navigator, Gotrek, 2 units of Arcanauts and a frigate as battle line because it's Zilfin, 10 Thunderers and an Ironclad. So it's basically heroes and an Ironclad with Thunderers and then Gotrek running around. Pretty cool. Yeah. What do you guys think of that list?
It's a very interesting, it's a very interesting choice for Zilfin build, but I'm still shocked that everybody takes Gotrek in this environment. I'm always shocked. Like, there's so many ways, like with Starborn being a thing, like, oh yeah, click and point, remove wards, he's dead. Okay, cool, awesome investment. I mean, he's not the only one, right? Like Barl also brought like a KO list with Gotrek and did very well in LVO. So there must still be something about it, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I personally am playing Gotrek at the moment, and yeah, you do have those games where, you know, if you're not careful, you could lose him turn 1. But then you have plenty of games where they just can't deal with him.
Yeah,
and he just blocks off the middle of the board. Or some
Scott
people
had.
Sorry, Matt, we didn't catch that.
I'm looking at Scott.
You're
no worries. Scott had an uh-oh.
You press to push the top key. I think is a little sticky. It sounds like.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me better?
Yeah,
yes.
We can hear you.
All right, sweet. Sorry about that. Yeah, Scott had a tough run of opponents, and his loss came to a really interesting and nuanced Gloomspite Gits list. So he did well despite having a really tough run of opponents.
Mm-hmm.
Gits are so hard with their recursion.
Mm-hmm. There was a lot of Gloomspites about because Scott played Gloomspite twice. Jeremy, you played Gloomspite twice, didn't you?
I played KO twice.
Yeah.
Monster Truck twice. Gloomspite once.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I played Gloomspite twice.
I dodged him. I didn't play Gloomspite one time.
there was a lot of Oryx running around because, but
because it's not from
I played 4 out of my 5 games were against greenskins.
Yeah. Yeah, because you played against Cool Boys and Big War as well. So it's like, yeah.
Ooh, man.
Yeah, just all the Oryx.
I was hoping to dodge Cruel Boys because my list is not designed to fight Cruel Boys, especially hiding the sneaky ones. So I'm glad you got that matchup, Ian.
Yeah, I'm more fine into it since I have 2 guns other than the Arcanaut Company that are more than 12-inch range. So
right. Yeah, you're like I'm in 12 all the time. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's Scott's list, and Matt, you also managed to go 4-1 with your list, which is Barak. Also 1 drop. Unless I made a mistake, because it's also 1970 points as well. So you had Engine Master with dirigible suit, Stormcaller, which is a recurring theme, and officially, according to Best Coast Pairing, you had the Nullstone icon on it. I know you had the Voidstone Orb, but that was actually the wrong way around, and the Voidstone Orb is obviously on the Navigator.
Yes.
So on Best Coast Pairing, that's incorrect. But you had the Nullstone icon on him, and then Brock Grunson, a unit of Arkanauts, 2 units of 9 Riggers, Gun Hauler, and Ironclad Prudency Shoots, all in a battle regiment for 1 drop.
Yes, sir.
So-
Started on the table with 12 models every game. Because all of the engine riggers, all of the heroes started in the Ironclad, had ourselves a booze cruise, a party boat, and just describe this list in one word: meme. I wanted to have some fun at LVO, and yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's basically Clown Car. But
Right. But nothing
Clown Car
ever
rides again.
Nothing ever gets out of the boat, and if it does, it's only because I want to run and shoot with everything instead of fly high. So they all get out, then they move and run, and then they just get back in again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Do you actually find that you ever did that much? Because we've talked about that on the show, but I've never really found it coming up in games much where it's actually been that much useful.
I did it every single game. Like
Mhm.
at one point, I was like, "Hey," told my opponent, "I'm going to do this," and I sort of mapped it out for them. And I was like, "Do you really want me to move all 21 models out of the boat and then back in the boat? Do you mind if I just sort of describe to you what I'm going to do?" And a couple of them were like, "No, I really need to see that." And I'm like, "Yeah, no problem, not a problem." But the prosecute wars with all haste. Luckily, before the tournament, just perusing the battle tome, I realized, oh, that's not once per game, that's once per turn.
Yeah.
So that was a really exciting revelation right before the tournament. But no, I used it almost every single game because being able to not have to be outside the 9 and then sort of in these tight little corners that people are trying to zone you out from, but being able to fly over things and then land within 3 is just so much more freeing. There's so many more possibilities for better positioning and to go after targets that I wanted dead rather than the targets that my opponent was giving me. So I used it quite a bit, and I really to great effect and especially in one particular game in my 4th game against a great Sylvaneth player.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is more useful with an Ironclad because an Ironclad is, the slowest of the boats anyway, and I probably don't use it as much because I'm playing with the +2 move on the boats as well. So, you've got that little bit of extra speed, and then if you get the guys out of the boat and then you run the boat, then you could potentially end up, obviously you don't have to move as far as you could, but you could waste a bit of that move by the fact that you don't really need to. Because you could end up running out of range of your riggers.
It's not like his list benefits from the other ones either, right? Like he doesn't have only 10 Arkanauts, count as 2 once per game. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Reroll 1 roll of a 1 per shooting phase. Like that's cool. Maybe on the solid shots on the Ironclad, like maybe once in a while. Like there's no like. I mean, yeah, you're kind of stuck with like that seems to be the best one available.
Yeah,
pretty much, and just with all the healing from the engine riggers and the enter, like just staying inside the boat most of the time, unless it was to avoid having to, running and then still being able to shoot. And I don't know, for people who don't know exactly what I'm referencing, so essentially, because Brock Grunson has the command ability to allow a sky vessel to run and then still shoot and or charge later in the turn. But if the engine riggers inside the boat stay inside during that run move, they count as running and can't shoot. And so what you essentially can do is just get everybody out of the boat. Then you can have Brock Grunson issue the command. Then the boat can move, run 2d6, and re-roll that run roll. And then the engine riggers, since they haven't moved yet, they got out before the boat moved, they can then move. Then they just run up to the back of the Ironclad, and then now they're wholly within 3 again. They just get back in, and they haven't run, so now they can shoot.
Yeah.
I thought they did they not fact that? I thought they specifically fact that to say they count as running. I sorry. I thought they had like addressed that mechanically. Did they not?
No, I don't think they did.
They might have clarified it the other way.
No, I think the one you're thinking of was the one to do with the retreating. So if you retreat a unit and then you do the disengage with a boat, so you disengage the boat, and then the other unit gets the unit that retreats gets into the boat. Whether that they still count as having retreated, and they don't get the retreat and shoot because their retreat wasn't while they were in the boat. They FAQ'd that.
I'm gonna keep. I don't want to distract. I'm gonna keep reading. I was like, I thought they had like addressed it somewhere or another, but it wouldn't be that shocking.
I mean, the battle scroll could be coming very soon, so maybe it will be coming up.
There you go. And there's really not too much depth to this list, but essentially throughout my games I was looking to, with the riggers having 3 shots at Ren 2 apiece, and there's 18 of them. That's just a lot of small arms fire. So essentially what I was looking to do was move either the way I described or through fly high, shoot one target, charge another, and really try to do some hefty damage when I can, in a timely fashion when the opportunity was given. So, and a lot of times it was just too much for my opponents to handle.
Yeah, I mean there is a 54 shots at Ren 2, and you got the inspired triumph, and at 1970 points you probably did get it quite often. So pushing that 4 up on one of those units of riggers to a 3 up is could be pretty useful.
And then Barak puts out surprising amount of firepower. Like so many people were like, "Wait a minute, where is this coming from?" And I'm like, "One of the guys inside the boat."
One of the guys basically shoots as good as a frigate.
Yeah.
It almost mechanically does the same output of melee as a frigate too, with the mortal wound generation on top of that before you count his melee attacks. It's hilarious.
Yeah, and then he's buffing all those 18 riggers as well, giving them all an extra attack. So
it's essentially 56 Ren 2 D3 attacks on top of 54 Ren 2 1 damage shooting attacks.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a fact clarification, but you're fine as long as you didn't disembark at the end of the movement phase. So if you made the run roll of the boat, moved behind, disembarked, make the run roll of the boat, embarked on it, and then use combat landing, you count as running.
What? Which doesn't make much. It doesn't really matter much because it's like if I use combat landing, then I can't charge with them anyway. So
I know, but it's like that is like how they basically said like you count as making whatever the move of the boat was when you were embarked in it. So like if you ever get back into the boat, you count as making the run effectively.
Yeah.
After you disembark, if you disembark from the boat. Which is hilarious to me, but whatever.
So Matt, you won against Deepkin, Ogres, Nurgle, and Sylvaneth, but then lost against Soulblight Gravelords. So I mean, is there anything from those matchups that you sort of took away? Do you think that Soulblight is a hard matchup for KO, or?
I'm gonna laugh if you don't say their answer correctly. Come on, Matt.
I think he's actually frozen.
Oh, perfect. He's disconnected. I'll answer for him.
He got too intimidated and dropped out.
I think it was more of a matchup. He played, obviously Guan, Tom Guan, and he definitely was like, a little bit of a starstruck. I'll let him explain his game, but effectively he made a mistake turn 1 that cost him a lot of points on the table.
Right.
So that had some resounding effects at the game. That doesn't mean like it wasn't, his game to win, but I think like if he had not made that mistake, he wouldn't have had like kind of like, dug himself a tunnel in his head, and then couldn't see the way out of the zombie spam as is. The downside is was Geomantic Pulse, and that army does not like missions where it has to, be everywhere all at once. So, but obviously I'm putting words in his mouth, but that's based on the discussion I had with him after the game. So it's like I got to watch this game. I will say though, I hope Ian, you had the same experience as I did. So I played, 7 rounds of AOS and LVO. I think I played a combined total amount of 6 hours of AOS in 7 games. It was really nice having like all this free time to just go walk around and wait at the bar, have some food, like, watch other people play. I don't think any of my games made it past I think one of my games made it past an hour and a half in total combined time. That was my game against Gavin, I think, if I remember correctly, because we just really slow rolled it. But for the most part, it's a nice value prop when you're going to play like potentially 8 rounds to play an army that you don't have to think like 3 hours for 8 times. So it was nice and refreshing.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure if Matt's
Gloom
coming
Spite.
back.
Yeah, who knows how that Wi-Fi is doing at Squad Marks.
How's what did you say about your game with Gloomspite, Ian?
I was saying most of my games were quick also, except the ones versus Gloom Spite took a lot more time just because of all the recursion and everything. Yeah. I guess my game against Levon, who played Gloomspite, also took a while, but in total playtime myself, I think I played less than 6 hours, like effectively, during the 8 rounds or 7 rounds we played.
Sounds like a good segue into Ian's list, since we've lost Matt as well. So Ian, your Barak's on 2 drops, exactly 2,000 points. So you had an Admiral as your general with Stormcaller, as you do, because everyone seems to have Stormcaller these days. A Navigator with Voidstone Orb, Drekkie Flint, 3 units of 10 Arcanauts, and then 4 units of 3 Skywardens, and 3 units of 3 Endrinriggers, and 2 frigates, one of which had Prudency shoots and was the flagship. And then that was all split across 2 battle regiments to give you the 2 drops. So yeah, do you want to talk us through just some of the decisions you made with this list? Obviously, it seems like you went for MSU rather than larger units.
Yeah. So the first kind of half of the year up until August about, I was running a different list with one large, before the points changes, it was 2 9-man units of Skywardens with 2 frigates, and then after the points changes, it was 1 unit of Skywardens and 1 unit of Endrinriggers with only 1 frigate. And then with of course, the rally article. But after playing that up through August in Old Town Throwdown, it just seemed to having all of your hammers be in pretty much only 2 units made it can get bogged down. So I decided to switch it up to this. To the MSU makes it also, because when getting out of the frigate, a 9-man unit is a little unwieldy to get everybody into the combats you need. So being able to put 2 units on one side of the frigate and then 1 unit on the other side of the frigate really gets you the maneuverability you need to. It also technically gives you more attacks because you have more champions for each of those. So with the 6 units, I technically got 4 extra attacks army-wide. It's not huge, but every attack counts. Welcome back, Barker.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
And so, yeah, I decided on this list mainly because I could also deploy 1 unit of Skywardens to go off to a flank or something that needed to secure it, or hunt down a lone hero or a remnant of a unit. Having the large units I just found was a little too clunky, and really you weren't able to spread out as easily. So moving to this MSU style, it also kind of makes it so your opponent has to split attacks if they have larger units, and from my many years of playing miniature games, splitting attacks is my least favorite thing because you make the wrong decision. You say, "Oh, this will obviously kill him," and then you roll 3 1s, and it's like, "Well, okay, well that unit's still alive, and I lose now." So I wanted to give my opponents that choice.
There's nothing more satisfying than when you split attacks and it actually does pay off, and you kill something to the exact number of wounds that it needed to. That's really satisfying.
Yeah.
I guess the MSU also helps with some of the battle tactics as well, like surround and destroy. You can just send like a 1 unit Sky Wardens or Engine Riggers somewhere, and you're not, sending like a whole 9-man unit out of the way where you don't want them. So that's helpful as well. I'm interested about Drekkie Flint in the list.
Yeah. So the choice was between Drekkie Flint or an Endrin Master in the Endrin harness. So I would have been down to 1970 points with the possibility of my bloodthirsty triumph. And I felt Drekkie, since 1970, I'd say maybe is about a 50% chance I would get that triumph. I felt Drekkie was just a better fit than trying to go for that bloodthirsty, since he has the same number of attacks. He wounds better than an Endrin Master. He does 1 less damage, but he's also an anti-monster, being able to just do pretty much a free 3 mortal wounds after he attacks. And then in the very corner case matchups, when he can destroy an artifact that the enemy is really relying on, I felt that was really could just clinch it. So
you forgot his
like
shooting. Good shooting.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. The main thing is his gun. The main reason is that his gun is just really, really good. If you roll, even average and get 7 shots and then give them all out attack, 2s and 3s, -1, 2 damage apiece, is just solid.
Yeah, I guess because you mentioned about the Triumph, there's also a less obvious use of the Triumph in this list as well. Because obviously everything's getting +1 to hit and wound on the charge anyway. You haven't got like a big unit for like if you had a big unit of Sky Ones or Engine Riggers, you could use it for their shooting. I mean, obviously you can use it on a frigate or something, but going for the Triumph is it's not as useful. Were you pretty much set that you wanted to have 3 heroes then?
Yeah, I always wanted to have at least 1 combat hero per frigate, just to support the units, and also to be harder to kill. The Navigator sure has a 3-up, but only 5 wounds, so having a second hero, since pretty much Drekkie and the Navigator were always hanging out in the secondary frigate with the Admiral in his flagship. So just having a second hero being able to be there to issue all-out defense to a frigate if the Navigator gets sniped, since people really don't like him, I felt was pretty useful.
Yeah.
I found a couple people. I found a couple people during the tournament being like, "Dude, who keeps doing that? Okay, he is dead."
Yeah, keep playing against a local here, Brian Cox, with his Beastmen, and he always just tries to use that heroic action to just murder the the Navigator from off the board.
Yep.
Ian, I was going back and forth whether I wanted to play the same exact list that I had, but in Barak Zon, and I was trying to see if what would be better, getting all of the Engine Riggers, or in your case the Wardens, +1 to hit or wound, or giving them +1 attack with Barak. And it's actually a lot closer than you would think, but it's an interesting thought experiment to think about how either putting everything in Zon and giving them +1 to hit or wound on the charge, or putting them in Gnar with Brock Grunson to give them +1 attack. And the math is pretty close, but it's definitely interesting because we had similar lists, but obviously just very different styles.
Yeah, and like we discussed also with because you were asking when you were putting your list together on, what I think was better, the Zon or doing Gnar with Brock. And I told you what my reasoning was for doing Zon is because I'm a notoriously horrible roller, that I really need those 2s and 2s to even connect with anything. The extra, I probably would run this in Gnar with Brock Grunson if I was more of a reliable roller, but I roll so many 2s that I had to build the list to get around my horrible rolling.
I just want to say for a second that Ian is not exaggerating. I have played against him several times in tournaments, especially when I was playing a lot of Nurgle. I have watched a lot of his games. Ian is not exaggerating. He must, and it's not that he just rolls ones and twos or just rolls bad like all the time. It's when he needs it the most. When there's like a critical moment in the battlefield, he's going for a surgical strike, and he's like, "All right, here we go. I just need a 4-inch charge, 1 and a 2." Like it's without fail. So he's not just saying things for the sake of it. It's actually true. It's kind of a meme.
Yeah, it's. I was actually very happy that this LVO actually rolled average, which for me is rolling hot.
Yeah.
So I was super excited that I rolled average. And actually, one game I rolled over average, which shocked me immensely.
Hey, that's Vegas for you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Did you make up for that?
Vegas.
Did you make up for the good luck on the table with bad luck on the Vegas tables?
I never got to touch the Vegas tables. So
I took all the bad luck on the blackjack table for him. Don't you worry about that.
Yeah, like the other local that's known for their bad rolling is Aaron, and before the first round, Aaron was like, "All right, let's absorb each other's bad luck. One of us will take all the bad luck for the tournament, and then the other one can do well." And luckily, Aaron took one for the team, and he took all my bad luck for this LVO.
And there was a local GT like the week or two before LVO to sort of like test your lists and work out some kinks. And there was a bounty prize where like there was a whole slew of things that if they happened to you during the game, you could call the TO over and he'd give you a check mark. And whoever had the most horrible rolls on this whole sheet of thing got to wear like this cape and got special prizes, and it was all supposed to be fun. And I would have put money that Ian was going to be taking home that prize, but the other notorious terrible roller, Aaron, he won by a landslide. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, I got second place in that. He took it though.
There's nothing better than creating an incentive structure to roll bad, So just go prep for the largest AOS tournament in the world. Don't worry about it.
I wonder if there was anyone microwaving their dice, but to make them roll badly.
Yeah.
So I have a question, not necessarily specifically for you, Ian, because Jeremy, I can't remember. Did you have Stormcaller as well?
Nope.
No. Okay. Well, just for Ian and Matt, then, how often did you guys find that even with Stormcaller and rerolling, you still didn't get any ones?
Over all the games, I'd say maybe only on 2 occasions. Like throughout all 6 games that I played. Well, 9 including doubles. Yeah, maybe 2 times I didn't get what I was looking for. 3 maybe at the most.
It happened to me one time, but I really just needed 1/1, and it wasn't even for the half move. I just needed to get rid of Dreicha, who was on 1 wound left, and I did because I wanted to be able to shoot his Belthanos. But I had to devote those shots to killing Dreicha because I rolled all 6 dice, didn't get any ones. I got like 4 6s, and then re-rolled them, and I didn't get anything. And I was like, the one time I just need the D3 mortals, not even for the half move. Yeah, but it happened to me one key time.
Okay, so did you either of you use the 6s much?
So myself, didn't use it too often. Actually, the funny thing is the re-rolling, one of those instances was looking for 6s, and I didn't get any 6s on that one. So out of the 2 or 3 times, one of them was looking for 6s. The other times were looking for 1s. But most of the time, I didn't really need the 6s just because your 14-inch move with all the frigates and then the Command the Skies from the Admiral, I used that pretty much every single game. And and then the Fly High with the 2nd frigate, I didn't really need the 6s too often. It was just like in 1 or 2 cases that I needed it.
There were two
Okay.
cases where I did use it, and I was actually looking for it, and it just came in so perfect because, like we talked about earlier, being able to run and shoot and still charge rather than having to rely on fly high and be outside of a 9-inch barrier is just comes in so handy. And sometimes that extra 4 or 5-inch movement really just makes the rest of it just seamless.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I find that I don't use it very often, but the fact that it's D3 plus 3 rather than just like D6, it's just is right, I think, because it just makes it, you know, at least there's a certain amount of guarantee that you go. I'm gonna move at least 4, which is good. Cool. So Ian, we mentioned earlier you played against a lot of greenskins. Were there any of your games that you wanted to specifically talk about, or that you found difficult, or?
Yeah, so like definitely my first game against Chris and his Cruel Boys was
Mhm.
definitely one of those games that priority super mattered because of, you know, I could kill one of his units of since he was running 2 Sludge Raker Beasts and 2 units of the Manskewer Bolt Boys. I could get rid of one reliably in a turn, but not be able to get rid of the second of each of those units. So fishing for that priority really made it close, and luckily I got that priority when I needed it to be able to get up there. He played a little cagey on the first turn, barely moved up a little bit. I did the same thing, and we really did nothing on the first turn. And then second turn and onwards, we were just in the mix of it. But definitely my third my third game versus the Boingrat Bounder list. That one was really just a slog because it was 3 units of 10 Boingrat Bounders with all the support and 2 big units of Stabbas to screen him and everything. But he got all of his units back pretty much once. So that was just a really big back and forth getting out to the end. And then, of course, my round 5 versus Greg. He's a great player, and luckily for me, his armor saves weren't very good, and I was able to punch through all of that high armor of all of his trolls, and he luckily didn't get any of his units back. He just couldn't roll that 4 up, so being able to only have to deal with his troll units once was definitely moved in my favor.
Cool.
Ian, was that Greg Brewer?
Yeah.
Yeah, Greg Brewer, the local SoCal player, Gloomspike Kids player, really good player.
Yeah, and you said that was round 5, so yeah. I mean, if he was playing against you round 5, he must be a good player because that would have been top tables. And of course, so they were your first 5 games, but because of the nature of the tournament, with there being 300, was it 341 we said, or 343, something like that. There were 11 5-0s, so obviously they had a system to generate basically. They took the top players, everyone that went 5-0, and then did like a mini tournament with those. Unfortunately, in the way it worked, basically it felt that some of the players got a bye in the first round of that, and because of their number of players, you unfortunately didn't get that bye, and then you had your next game against Cities of Sigmar, didn't you?
Yeah, so the way that it turned out, there were 11 5-0s at the end of game 5. So if you were placed 1 through 5, you got a guaranteed into the top cut for the next day. And if you finished 6th through 11th, you had to play a 6th round on day 2 to be able to get into that top 8 cut. So the thing was that they went top down for those pairings. So unfortunately, I finished 6th, which was 1 off from not having to play in the shadow round. So I had to play against 7th place, which was Gavin's Steam Tank Cities list. And then 8th had to play 9th, and 10th had to play 11th. So I think 10th and 11th were both Cruel Boys, and they had to do Cruel Boys on Cruel Boys, which I unfortunately didn't get to see, but that would have been fun. With nobody can shoot each other outside of 12. What can they do against each other?
Cruel Boys. They were very different Cruel Boys too. It was the best game of LVO. That wasn't even on the stream.
Yeah. So I had to play, like, out of all the undefeateds, that the Steam Tank list was the only list that I knew I didn't have any game into. And unfortunately, I had to run into it on the Shadow Round. I would have rather played it in the top 8, been able to, lose in there. But, it didn't turn out too well. I did as good as I could on turn 1. I gave him top of 1. He killed all of my Arcanaut company. And give me just 1 second. Need to plug in my headset because it's dying.
Got it.
While he's doing that, it looks like there's a question in the chat from Clayton Heelman, and he's asking Ian, which he's just about to tell us. Clayton in the chat, did you try to alpha strike the Steam Tanks?
Yeah, so on turn 1, all his Steam Tanks went and killed all my Arcanaut company, so I didn't have anything to go grab points on their own. I had to dedicate, Sky Wardens or anything like that. So my turn 1, when I got going, I was able to. He had 2 of his Steam Tanks. No, one of his Steam Tanks was out of order range. So the one thing, I actually hadn't played against new cities up until this point, but I've heard all the horror stories from everybody. So I had a plan going into it, and the plan was don't shoot them, which sucks for KO. But turn 1, one of his Steam Tanks was out of the order range, so pretty much my whole army just shot at it. But it has a 0-up armor save because of the Alchemite Warforger and all-out defense. So I was still able to put some damage onto it. And then I charged both my frigates into the 2 Steam Tanks that were guarding kind of his south end. He had 3 Steam Tanks with the commander at the top, 2 Steam Tanks at the bottom, and then there's an impassable that was running in between it to block in all of his juicy targets in the back. And I was able to kill the 2 Steam Tanks that were guarding the south end with my frigates charging in and all my attacks. He's bound to roll, low at some point with all the attacks I throw out there. So was able to kill the 2 Steam Tanks. I won priority into top of 2, which was definitely something that I needed. And that was the turn where I wasn't able to shoot anything because everything was within order range. So it pretty much was just dropping bombs and then everybody getting inside the frigates and then charging into his other targets. So unfortunately, though, I left one of his command cores on 1 wound left on 1 model. I killed his Alchemite Warforger, and I think I did 7 or 8 damage to his, I don't know, I'm blanking on the name. The guy with the battle mage on top that shoots mortal wounds.
The Luminite?
Yeah, the Hurricanum.
Yeah. Okay.
So I only did like 7 or 8 damage to it. So it would have been a lot better if I was able to finish off that 1 unit of command core and the Hurricanum, but it wasn't to be. And then he was able to clap back and then kill one of the frigates, and then I lost a couple of units in the attack back, and then he rallied back his deny the command ability, the Whisper Blade or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And that on my turn 3 made it so that I failed a 6-inch charge and he denied me a reroll, so I failed my battle tactic, and then the game was pretty much over at that point. So yeah.
It's cities is it's kind of annoying to play against. I've only experienced once so far with the Noon book, but that we Matt, you mentioned about not relying on fly high. Well, against cities, you definitely can't rely on it because on a 4+, you don't get to fly high potentially.
Right.
Yeah.
So I didn't play cities at this tournament, but I did at the LVO Prep GT, and it was funny because I used the 4-up rally in my turn, and then so my opponent tried to deny that. And then so I had 2 command points left, and I'm like, okay, well, because of Barak or the Admiral and prosecute wars with all haste, I have 2 ways to get to you, and I can either. So I can use command the skies, and either you try to deny that, and that's your 2 tries, and then I'll be able to fly high, or you don't deny it, and then I'm not even going to try to fly high because now I can just run in. So it was a really playing cities is like playing a game of that old PC game Minesweeper, where you're trying to figure out like who's got countershoot. Well, this guy is here, so he's next to this unit, so this guy probably has countershoot, but this one over here's probably got countercharge. And are you going to try to deny this?
Yeah, we lost.
It's just really interesting. Yeah. All of that thinking, and then look it, I don't have an army anymore.
We actually lost you for half of that map.
Your internet is going great. It's doing great.
Sorry.
The shooting back is annoying as well because they don't have to shoot the unit that's shot, and they can just shoot at anything, and it's just annoying.
I'm enjoying this entire moment here because you guys are complaining about the same mechanics I'm using in my army. And I'm not even playing cities.
Okay. Well, let's segue onto Jeremy's list. But before we do have a question from the chat, which is a bit of a segue, but ignoring all the sky draws, what tea are you drinking, Ian?
It's just an herbal tea with some licorice root and mint and stuff. It's a tasty beverage.
Tasty beverage. There we go. I don't know if you know Alexander Marquez and if that's a running joke between you two or whether he's just interested.
Yeah, he's a local here.
Okay. Are you both tea aficionados?
Anytime he's over, I make tea and he will partake. So
cool. Okay, so Jeremy, your list then. So you're about Mhornar, 1990 points, 2 drops because of double battle regiment again. So you had Admiral with X Grundstock as his command trait, Chemist with the Nullstone icon, a Navigator with a Voidstone Orb because why would you not? Because the Voidstone Orb is really good at the moment. And then as your battle line, 2 units of 10 Thunderers with mixed weapons, although one of them had mortars and the other one didn't.
Yep.
And a gun hauler with collapsible compartments because that's just really efficient. And 6 engine riggers with 2 drill cannons. Yep. And the rest swords and pistols. And then 2 frigates, one of which was the flagship.
Yep.
All in double battle regiment. So, I mean, my first question is why Mhornar?
Well, if you didn't like cities, then you definitely don't like Mhornar. Let's just put it that way. I know, the loose concept is I played at Everwinter a few weeks before LVO, and there was about 20% of the field was KO. So I knew I was probably going to play KO. I also thought I might play against OBR or Gits or Corn. Let me tell you, having the ability to prevent any command ability, even if it's only a 33% chance, is an insanely high probability of throwing in your favor mechanics that shouldn't be. I'll explain why in the mirror in a second. But for the most part, you also probably notice I picked Slaughter of Sorcery as a grand strat instead of Rule Disguise, because in a mirror, I am starting the game with basically almost a borderline 6-point advantage because I have to blow up your boats. And I get 6 points. So it's a very much designed for a mirror situation. And then there's no trading with some people. It's the same thing as return fire, except it's once per game and it's non-boat units. But for the most part, in a mirror, it actually shuts down a lot of shooting into the things that are going to matter in the second half of the game. Because the boats are nice in the first half to get up to speed, but really at the second half of the game, it's the Thunderers that do all the work. Arguably, the Thunderers do all the work all the time, but once the boats get in there, They're there. And then so that's like mostly like all the design around like, hey, I designed this list to play into KO. I wanted to.
Okay.
And I got lucky. I played against 2 KO armies, very different armies. I played a party boat with thunder, like 15 thunders, and I played basically Yuri with all engine riggers and 2 alpha strike charge frigate list. And in both games, it was basically over by the end of turn 2. So that matchup is so one-sided. It can be so one-sided that the games are very predictable and boring most of the time. In terms of why Barak Mhornar in those mirrors, preventing all-out attack when Thunderers get within 12 of you is pretty good. It's a pretty good tactic. It's pretty powerful. Also, preventing Sky High or Disengage or anything is really good. And then just finally, Inspiring Presence, because that's what really KO lacks is ways to remove Inspiring Presence. And having access to that for basically no investment is very powerful. And, there's ways, I always teach all my opponents how that mechanic works. So, they know it's the issuing model, it has to be within 12. There's ways around it. But in the second half of the game, against my list, everybody's within 12 anyway. So it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's also really good into OBR. That's how I beat OBR at Everwinter, which is basically that one time you turn off the bludgeon mechanic when they charge your frigate, and you're like, cool, now that frigate has a chance to survive, and it did, great. Or turning off Catacross's ability, or turning off redeploys. It's so against Khorne, I turned off, somebody trying to make a long bomb charge with 3d6 at 12 inches, and then they failed it, and then I stopped the reroll, and they were very sad. Cut their pants down the wind effectively.
So good.
So there's a lot of reasons why you take Barak Mhornar. It's just in this current environment where basically there's a massive premium on command abilities. It's just so much more important to be able to stop him. If you think Whisper Blades are bad, imagine an entire army that does it on the 5-up effectively. It's also a good counter for rally on Gits. It really annoys them when you tell them they can't just rally freely nilly. And so there's a lot of good reasons into that. And then the only techie thing I put the engine riggers and the gun haulers because it lets me do the battle tactics later in the half the game once things get diminished. Because it gives me another unit to disembark or re-embark and so forth and so forth. They operate more as a support firing unit than they do as a combat unit anyway in my list. The drill launchers are just nice because sometimes you want to push some random damage on a small hero where you don't have to overcommit everything else. But it's just shooty. It's just shooty KO that predicts, how your opponent, plays the game, and then you try to play on the edges of that to force them into taking risky maneuvers. And then when that doesn't pay out for them, you get massively rewarded. And then when they do get it, you hope they overextend from it, and then you punish them for that. So it's trying to play that game. Yeah, that's it. That's pretty summary.
that was a lot of information.
I'll take questions. Never.
Jeremy, I actually have a question for you, Jeremy. So obviously, a lot of the value in the frigate is being able to charge and then immediately get out and then always strike first, right? That's where a lot of the frigate's value is coming from. You don't think about or worry about losing some of the value by stuffing Thunderers in there, which are typically, I'm assuming, not charging in your list?
I charge all the time in my list. That's what you have fumigators for.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
Fumigators are at the end of combat. You roll dice for each fumigator in the unit. You pick an enemy unit of 3. On a 2-up, it does D3 mortal wounds. So if you have 2, you roll potentially 2D3 mortal wounds. And a lot of the time with the random mortal wound from the pecking bird, and then the charge mortal wound from boat and everything, it actually pushes enough damage to finish off some annoying things. Against Gavin, the fumigators would have been the best solution I had against the tanks. But I will be honest, I rarely ever disembark out of the boat to strike first, mostly because I like having the the ability to sequentially trigger mechanics, effectively having to be able to see what my opponent does for pylon before I commit to a pylon and so forth and so forth. I like to sometimes there's an opportunity cost to disembarking and doing the strike first, and this list doesn't really get to maximize that anyway. There's rarely ever. The only argument you make is so that way so you prevent your boat from getting surrounded and then just blow it up automatically, which happened against Gavin specifically. But it was the only game I had where that actually happened the entire tournament. And for the most part, like I had such a horrible turn 2 that like it didn't really matter anyway. Like if you blew up or not, like it just the game was just over just because of like turn 2 just dice from a mechanic. So it's a matter of like getting the few mitigators when they need to be to maximize the potential mortal win output to finish off things like. And then push, you're trying the Thunderers are trying to basically pick off the big targets, but having that extra mortal wound output lets you basically finish off things with like 5-up wards, which I played a lot against. So, I charged a lot of this list. It was not as passive as it looks.
Well, I withdraw my snarky comment about you not charging into combat. Very, very great perspective. Thank you.
I don't charge turn 1 if that's what you're asking. I might charge turn 2.
But you're a Corsair. You always charge turn 1.
I charge turn 1. I think this tournament was the first tournament I actually did boots on the ground turn 1 2 games.
Wow,
which was odd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not often turn 1 when you commit that much. But just
that's really interesting, Ian, and Jeremy, because like many games, in fact all of my games, I don't think I did a single charge turn 1, and I think that's what my opponents expected. I'm just gonna slam into you right from the very beginning, but most of the time I picked off a little ancillary unit on the side with opening salvo, got a battle tactic, scored a point or 2, but really was just kind of feeling out my opponent, getting some early points, letting things sort of spread out a little bit, right? But I think it's interesting that you guys were a little bit more aggressive than I was with my list, and people would have assumed that it would have been the other way around.
Yeah, sometimes it kind of forces you into it. Like both my games versus Gits, they both had Scrag Rot, and just being able to have a mobile moon and having that finger laser is really dangerous. So in both my Gloomspite Git games, I just had to remove Scrag Rot on turn 1 just to prevent that from happening. So
good call.
And especially with like Boingrot Bounders always have to get the charge to be able to really do their full potential. So being able to, even if I don't kill the unit, at least tie it up with a frigate so that they don't get the charge in. That was really beneficial too.
That's a good assessment.
Jeremy, a quick question about your list. The one unit of Thunderers having the mortars and the other unit not. Was that just so you could sort of dedicate, one unit that had the tech and one that didn't? And
I mean, like I ended up playing against like 2 monster truck lists. I'm bloody glad I didn't have 2 mortars in the other. I just for the extra. Also, they're both 18-inch range, but like sometimes like I need a Thunder unit to like basically pressure like a single character. So like there's a unit that does that, and then there's a unit that doesn't. And then also it's just mechanically like that's the decision behind it. So
Jeremy, I have another question. I think when somebody sees 20 Thunderers in a list, they're going to assume, okay, who's holding the Celestium Burst Grenade? Obviously, you've got the Voidstone Orb. The Voidstone Orb is incredibly powerful in a meta that includes Blizzard and Primal Dice. But did you ever give a thought to throwing the Burst Grenade in to remove wards in the shooting phase?
I think you're just setting me up because I've explained this in our private Discord many times. The Burst Grenade it's a cool thing, but like I rather have Voidstone because you get to bang that what the Burst Grenade does with it as well, because a lot of ward saves are basically spell based, so you can have the ability to turn off ward saves like Lumen F1s or Sylvan F1s or whatever. There's a bunch of spells that generate like some kind of ward save, and you can kind of get your value buff from that. But your KO is not the army that typically, like, unless your opponent's going to make like 60% 5-up saves, 5-up wards, like you can just usually blow through the wards. It's not like an army that has like literally the value that it get. It has that most of your targets are going to be overkill, unless you're playing against steam tanks, which is a different equation, which don't have any ward saves, so it's a different problem altogether. So like in a sense, like the burst grenade also depending on a 2-up. I don't like depending on a 2-up. I'm sure Ian doesn't like either. Doesn't like it either. So,
The other thing, Jeremy, I don't know if you use it too often. I never use it. Have you ever used the bring every gun to bear on the Admiral?
Nope.
Yeah, I think for me it's a dead ability. I'm not sure if anyone else has used it.
100% dead.
I mean, not having you not be able to move just makes it no thank you.
No, it's potentially you might be able to use it later in the game if you're already in combat or something, but I've never actually personally used it.
Okay.
I think Max has mentioned he has, but
I will explain. And this is like I'm not going to turn it into a rant about cities, but the Steam Tank list is effectively a KO list. It's what it does. It's effectively just a KO list. The difference is that everything KO does, which is a resource-based constraint, cities does with no resource involvement. Because when you think, like as Ian brought up, do you use a command ability that lets you get an extra shot on your weapons if you don't move? No. I guess what Steam Tanks do, they do that for free. And they get to move. Oh, you spend a command ability to run and charge and shoot? Guess what? Steam Tanks do that also for free. You do mortal wounds on the charge? They do mortal wounds on the charge. They have cannons and small arms farm. They have cannons and small arms. The one thing Steam Tanks do better, much better, is their combat prowess. I think 6 attacks are 3s and 3s, run 1-2 damage is pretty good. I wish I had that on frigates. No, but I mean, like it's literally like it's playing into a KO list that just happens to have basically 0-up save and mortal wound and shooting, which there's a reason why mortal wound and shooting, for when it was very popular in KO, went away very quickly. It's like the sins of the past didn't make it into that book. But yeah, it's basically a KO list. So you approach it the same way you should dismantle a KO list. The difference is there's just so much more efficient at everything KO does effectively outside of speed. Speed is their only real constraint, and even then, they can run and charge and shoot, and they're basically well,
they can also advance as well. They get the plus 3 move and
plus 3 move, and they can give two Steam Tanks automatic 6-inch run because it's tank commander. So effectively, they're very fast. I think when I played Gavin, one of his Steam Tank moved almost 30 inches before charging me and shooting me. So I was like, this is a cool mechanic. I enjoy this. They also, I don't know about you, Ian, but on the table I played, they told us the walls were purely cosmetics on the terrain. So he could just barrel through all the terrain on his Steam Tanks. I was like, I'm so glad I brought fly on my keywords.
Oh, that's interesting. You just right through the walls.
Yeah, I mean, I had that Steam Tank basically do what's it called, a Kool-Aid Man move. Hey! Just press through the walls. Hello!
I mean,
who told you that?
It is a tank,
that?
so.
Tomo, Gareth. They basically, at first,
no.
What's his name? Gavin thought it was all the walls, and then I asked, "Are you kidding me? Is it really all the walls?" So Gareth,
no,
and he said, "No, these 2 walls on the other end of the tables are not cosmetic."
I would have. I would have challenged that a little bit harder because that's a total deviation from the core rules of the game.
I mean, it's what as long as I knew before the game was played. I didn't want to be surprised when I halfway through, these walls don't do anything. Cool.
Yeah.
They block line of sight, which is nice, for him. Playing that game was just so I watched Ian for context because I can talk about the other games, but I think everybody wants to talk about that specifically that game. I watched Ian play his game, and my first gut was I should have sat down with Ian probably before the game and explain what my thought process of how to approach that list was. Remove the Hurricane as fast as possible, work on the Warforger next, and then the Command Core, and then basically that's my order of operation, and just ignore the tanks as much as possible because they're just the math to kill them is so staggeringly annoyingly the probability curve that just killing one tank without mortal wound output is so unlikely that you might as well pick off other things to get value prop for the second half, and that's what I try to do in my game. I Gavin popped Finest Hour on his Huracanum. And then I didn't shoot the Huracanum turn 1. I shot command course, and one guy lived with 1 wound. I made a small deployment mistake where I couldn't bring I couldn't bring my second frigate into shooting range of it because he stopped the Sky High. But I didn't need to Sky High. I could have just deployed like better. I knew he was going to make me go first, but I still deployed conservatively just in case. This is also a difference. Like I think because we're both me and Ian a 2-drop, and Gavin as well as a 2-drop. If I had one who went first on turn 1, I would have made him go first, and he would have lost an entire round of shooting. And then if I went, he made me go first, so I had to I tried to minimize the amount of shots he can bring with tanks into me, like the 12-inch ones or 15-inch ones with his artifact. And obviously, he still managed to get 3. I didn't kill the command core. He ended up on his bottom of turn, rallying 2 back. He picked Magical Dominance, miscast on the first cast, but it wasn't the Warforger. So the guy that was like, I have an auto unbind guy on that one, like, and then he miscast. I was like, cool. So I don't get to stop at that one. So he cast the Warforger. He almost miscast, he almost super roll. Throws a primal dice, and he has a 1, by the way, in that roll. Throws a primal dice, rolls a 6, throws another primal dice, rolls another 6, so I don't even get a chance to unbind it. And I was like, awesome. All the mortal wounds on the tank's not active. And that's literally how you kill the frigate.
Was he rolling 3 dice at the casts, or was he only doing 2 with some of them?
Yeah, we didn't know, at the time, I did not know if you roll 2 1s and then, another result on the 3rd dice, it doesn't count as a miscast for normal casting. So in a sense, if we had played it correctly, he would have dropped his battle tactic turn 1. It didn't matter anyway because my turn, he ended up winning turn 2 primal as well, made me go first again. I had just lost a frigate at that point. Had I been able to stop the mortal wounds, the frigate would have been alive and fully back up to speed because honestly, he just didn't have the output to just fully blow up a frigate about the mortal wound. And then my turn 2 shooting was horrendous. I shot into he put everything into a garrison because he also got to control how he put everything into a garrison. And I literally could not hit anything in the garrison. That -1 was really punishing. And then the +1 save and everything. So his Warforger, his command core that I didn't kill the first turn, survived in it. So did the Warforger. Then I had to charge into it to finish off the Warforger. I did manage to kill the Huracanum on my turn 2, which was huge. Fairly easily. It's not I think it's very tanky. And then it also was a terrain feature that was all mystical, so we had a 6-up ward save the entire time. So it was a little, added insult to injury. But it didn't really matter. My dice were so cold, I wasn't really causing that many wounds. And then at that point, the game, he went in, blew up the frigate, literally to a T. I think he flubbed all of his enchanted rapier swings, which was another kind of why does that unit have that? Why does it have these tools? And then he had literally, I think he killed it to the last model activating. So literally there was a chance he could have whiffed and not kill it at all, which could have swung the game back again. If I had kept prio, that was another whole conditional step onto it. But it was a game of more I made a deployment mistake, and then he won every important sequential rolls, and then he got primal cast on the one spell that mattered in that matchup. So all these things into combination was just the game was kind of dice dependent. I honestly thought because I had the upper end of pushing, because I was going to effectively, I think the game was going to, it was a closer math game, he could have dropped. It's really hard for KO to drop battle tactics. It's really easy for his list to drop battle tactics. And then I was looking at scoring my grand strat automatically because I'm going to focus on killing all of his wizards. And then he was maybe going to potentially drop his grand strat depending on how the game would go. And then so that 6-point swing with another 1 or 2 battle tactic drop would have put him into a situation where he can't, or maybe would have won that 1 point. This is the margins I was looking at best. And obviously that didn't happen. That army is just it's not the steam tank list that's problematic. It's just literally the command core. It's just it's such a stupid unit and that you can have 2 of them with. But the steam tanks are powerful for sure. They're probably a little bit undercosted, but it's basically a frigate. It's just literally as effective as a frigate, and it just doesn't carry anybody inside. So I don't know if I would
But like you said, there's no resource investment to do all of the cool shit that he can do.
No, like I think like surgeons basically fixing tanks is probably not a well-designed thought process. Like I do like the fact that like these surgeons are like, we are also mechanics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah, I
see, like
think
in KO, the engineers can't heal the guys, but in theirs, the surgeons can heal the machines. So
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think if the steam tanks dropped the human keyword, I think it definitely would help out because they wouldn't get the +1 to hit from the Hurricanum. They wouldn't be
Mhm.
able to be healed by the command core. But
They
yeah,
also-
definitely having
They also
the
lose some
they'd
battles.
still get
So,
the Alchemite Warforge would
yes.
still benefit them, but at least they lose
some
the
return fire.
+1.
Don't they lose return fire too? Because it has to be a human unit.
I believe so.
Yeah, that'll be honestly like that was like the thing that was the most like tragedy in that game was that like he has return fire. I also have return fire, but my return fire is way more conditional than his. So it's
because
just
yours is
Once per
only
game.
in their shooting phase.
so he
Because-
shot only boats. No, that book is we got to LV was the beta test for cities and the rule it was actually I will say like playing at the table I played on I got to play right next to Matt Rose, which is I guess the rules writer for the head rules writer for AOS, and literally like I think he made an off the cuff comment at the start of the game saying, I guess we're gonna watch a game of 40K, and I responded with, "Whose fault is that?"
Get him.
I mean,
Get him.
like giving him like every time I'd ask Gavin like how something worked, and I was like, "Well, that's really good," and then just look Matt Rose in the eyes like, no, that was I would not treat it that. Of course, Gavin's a friend of mine, so him winning was like not a big of a matter, but it was cool to see like, oh, okay, there's an army out there that just does what KO does better. Maybe I'll just put my frigates like because all of his steam tanks by the way were just gun haulers. Except for the commander, it was just gun haulers like riding waves. I'm like, great, next KO list right there.
Everything you can do, I can do better.
So no, it was that I could talk about the other games, but like, honestly, it's just like at that point, like I designed my list against KO and I played 2 KO games.
Yeah,
and then Yuri made a mistake where he give me Mystical Train. So he went all in on turn 1, and Mystical basically made the difference right now between him killing, a unit of Thunderers down to 2 models versus 4 models. So like that was, I don't know if it would have mattered in the grand spectrum of the game because I just needed the Fumigators to be alive. He lost all of his like Endrin riggers on turn 1. Between the Fumigators plus on the shell plus combats with various characters, like he lost all of them on turn 1. Yeah.
When you have honors and everything, you just need the unit alive as opposed to just gone. So at least you had the opportunity to rally them.
He also didn't know that if you charge, you lose cover. That was an interesting conversation with him. I was like, oh yeah, the guys in the boat don't have cover anymore. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, they charged.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I was like, I trying to explain to him. I was like, and he was like, oh, that's a valuable lesson to know.
Yeah.
So,
that's a big thing that's a big thing. And
that those like small shooting and like melee attacks made a difference because only a 4-up saved 2 wounds a model, and then like he lost one because of he couldn't inspire presence.
Mm-hmm.
He popped all of his command abilities because he was like, I'm not even going to risk the 5-up. I just know I'm not going to get inspiring presence, so he didn't have any CP to even try at the end of the first one. So he lost a unit just to battle shock effectively. And the next one was like 2 models left, which made it easy for a battle tactic, which was great as well because he didn't kill anything on. I think he might have killed the navigator. I love like I don't think my navigators made it past the game turn 1 because everybody hates him so much. Like poor guys, it's like I just draw maps, man. Like leave me alone.
Yuri came over to me after the game he played against you, and we had a conversation about Barak Nar, my list, and Barak Nar and Brock Runson versus putting everything in Zon. It was he's a good. I really like him. He's a good dude. That's the first time I got a chance to meet him.
He's good. I played both brothers back to back, like Levon and Yuri. Played Levon right before when he played Gitz, and I played Yuri right after.
Nice.
So I am the brother murderer, I guess. Like, I don't know how to describe it. And then the whole line. No, it was LV was always a ton of fun. I unlike my peers who got into day 3, I decided to drink until 3 in the morning, which could have something to do with my performance against Gavin, but Who knows?
Point of order. I want to make sure that everybody knows that I made sure to tell Jeremy to take it easy the night before. We were having fun that night, and I was like, "You got to get up and play, dude. I've got no consequences here. I don't want people thinking that I kept him out later than he should have been."
It just sucks to make it to day 3 and none of your friends are going out. I'm saying I'm gonna get FOMO, so I'm just gonna go do that instead.
Good for you.
So yeah, you're in Vegas, might as well go drinking. So
Hell yeah.
Okay. Cool. So I think we covered pretty much everything, short of going through every game, sort of turn by turn, which we don't want to do.
Lee, I know I kind of had some. I flew too high and lost Wi-Fi connection for a minute. I didn't know if you or anybody else had any questions about my list or about any experiences.
Well, there was a question, but Jeremy kindly answered it for us because he said he spoke to you after your game and basically knew the answer
against Tom.
Oh yeah, because I was, I was unexpectedly undefeated going into the last round, so I was pretty excited. But every time this happens to me, I play Tom Guan. Like it's happened, like I think 3 or 4 times so far. So it was like we kind of talked before pairings went up, and I'm like, we're gonna play, right? This happens every damn time, and then sure enough, we did. But yeah, I made a critical mistake, and I would have been more upset with myself if I had made a change in my game plan and then screwed it up. But, most of my damage comes from melee. And since the blocks of zombies are so large, I was just basically following my game plan of putting the most of my damage into the biggest units. I realized too late that I really should have shot the zombies and charged the dogs, not charge the dogs or not charge the zombies and shot the wolves. So I would have been more upset with myself if I deviated from my game plan that had been working and tried something. But I realized too late that the splashback, or I could have charged the zombies as long as I charged sort of the corner of the unit and not just slammed right into the middle of them. So had I played a little bit smarter, it would have been it was not I don't feel like Tom overly dominated the game. I didn't have too many engine riggers left, but there were a couple of points where I had a priority gone my way, or had I also I overshot a unit and I needed to charge it onto the pulse. I needed to charge that unit to get onto the pulse, and I overshot it. So I made a couple of critical mistakes, but that just is a highlight of why Tom is perennially at the top tables and the winner of the ITC this year, because he's just an excellent strategist. So, but it was a good match, and like I said, it was a pretty. I haven't played too much Warhammer in the past year, maybe 10 or 15 tournament games, when previously I might play that in a month or two. So I was really pleased as punch to go 4-0, and then have a shot to be on Ian and Jeremy's level here.
You gotta have to evict him out of your house, man. You need to evict Tom Guan from your head. Just do it.
Funny enough, I still haven't played Tom in AOS. We both come from competitive War Machine, and we ran into each other a bunch in War Machine, but I just somehow have never played him in AOS.
I mean, and it's not like he used to be a SoCal local, so but I'd fly to Boise and I'd play at Boise Cup and I'd be 4-0, and I'm like, oh, there's Tom Guan, like here he comes, and he moved to Arizona or something, and now he's not even in Southern California, but here I am, I'm 4-0. Oh, gotta play Tom. Like, he's a good dude though. I like Tom. Always a good game.
Cool. So I have a sort of 2 open questions to all 3 of you. The first question is, after having played the tournament and experiencing your games now, would you change anything about your lists? And then, as a tangent to that, bearing in mind there's a good chance there's a battle scroll coming, and admittedly we don't know exactly what is happening, but there's a chance that some KO stuff might go up in points. Is there anything you're thinking about with your list where you might take them if you find you can't afford your current list? So I don't know if anyone wants to jump in first with that.
Sure. Also, I'm pretty sure my list with post battlescroll would just be illegal, just from point increase. So I'm just going to. I mean, that's a word. The premise I'm assuming. I know I've got two things in the oven. I want to try. I'm technically playing the identical list in a team event in like 2 weeks because the battlescroll probably it's past the cutoff date. But I want to try a Barak list. There's because I kind of want to try more of a foot base, less boats list, just because if we can take a command cores, I'd take it just for the whisper blade. No, and then the other list I'm thinking about is just once like more Arcanauts, less of everything else, because I think Arcanauts are the one thing that's going to still be very efficient because everything else is probably going to get addressed in some point value or another. So working around Arcanauts is going to be, I think Brock plus Arcanauts charging might be fine on top of like what they do in shooting. So we'll see what it goes into going forward. But I think that's what I'm going to gravitate towards after the battle schools, like how to make Arcanauts work effectively. Not that they don't, just that everything else has been more efficient before. So.
How to maximize their value.
Yeah. So that's what I'm gravitating towards.
Yeah, because I mean, Arcanauts are good value. At the top list is they're slow and they're not easy to transport in quantities. But I don't know. Who knows? Maybe the Ironclad will go down in points as well, and you can, shove 20 in there, and that could be something. I mean, you're only going to do it once, likely, but
the GHB going away also will solve a lot of like KO headaches right now. Like the existence of Hoarfrost and Blizzard makes KO kind of a weird like situation in a sense.
See ya. Good riddance.
If you don't have to worry about Blizzard as much, it's going to be a much different game state for KO. So I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, do you think Voidstone Orb will be removed from your list with Blizzard and things disappearing, or if you'll keep it?
I think so. I think there's an opportunity for not having Voidstone because you don't have to worry about Hoarfrost or Blizzard. It really with Feck being out now in like a week, like the Voidstone is still very good. So the odds are you're probably keeping the Voidstone anyway. But like the thing about the Voidstone is it's like you don't want to pop it off right at the first Blizzard. Right? You have to like play around Blizzard for turn 1 and then save it maybe for turn 2 Blizzard or whatever situation. But it also comes down to how much Seraphon gets hit in the nerf battle scroll. So who knows, right? Like right now, like Voidstone is just too much value into the meta as it is, right? It's the reason why you see Null Myriad in almost every OBR list. It's just having the ability to counter spell damage because they made spell damage too good this edition. That like you want to keep it around. But yeah, I still don't know what the solution is. If they price hike Thunderers, Frigates, Endrin Riggers. I don't know. I don't think Skywardens will be attacked in terms of point cost because I think Ian is the only person that really runs Skywardens in the environment. So they might fly under the clouds here a little bit, but they're very good value as well. But those 3 units ahead are. I would say they're probably on the chopping block if Games Workshop wanted to address them in some way or another. And then the heroes as well. I think the Navigator is probably a super undercosted one. For what he does. So yeah, it's coming down. Like, can we make KO work of like Arcanaut Company? And I'm pleased to see that people are doing well with GoTrek. So like, there's an option here. Like maybe foot KO isn't like that unrealistic. Where you just deviate from the boats and more into like a normal infantry game. It would suck because it's kind of like the image, the icon, and a lot of the sub-faction mechanics around that, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's like for me, it's always been that's the thing. If I'm playing KO, I want to move 3 models around. So I'm gonna have to change my expectation.
But that's a good segue. Ian, what do you think for your list?
Yeah, before jumping into that, I was just going to comment off of Jeremy's final comments there that, definitely seeing a points drop in the Ironclad would be nice because right now spending 100 more points and taking 2 frigates is almost always the correct call just because frigates are so much better than the Ironclad. I can see frigates probably going up in price as well. But it'd be nice also to see gun haulers go down in price, because I would love to run more gun haulers. I have 5 painted gun haulers that I'd love to return to the table to just have a fun gun hauler list.
Lee, can we pop back to Ian's list?
Yeah. If I can find my mouse, there we go.
Yeah, so since I'm at exactly 2,000, definitely I'd assume
Good chance it's
Navigator's-
illegal.
Yeah, definitely. So I assume the Navigator's going to go up. Those engine riggers might go up, and the frigate might go up. So I still I come from playing ogres, so I'm an ogre player at heart. So I love melee. So that's what really drew me to this list, because I love the balloon boys and I love melee. So in combined arms is how I love to play the game. So back in 2nd edition ogres, I was running the underguts with the iron blasters and lead belchers and everything back before they were good in 3rd edition. So that was it was nice when this book came out that the balloon boys actually went back to a viable choice compared to the 2nd edition when they were real bad. So I'd probably continue to run a similar type of list. Like Jeremy said, the Arcanaut Company, they definitely are really good for their points value and being able to utilize more of them. So this list might change a bit to lose maybe a unit of Sky Wardens to throw in another unit of Arcanauts. That 40 points might be, and then Drekkie Flint will probably be downgraded into an Endrin Master, or since I'm running MSU, the Chemist really doesn't benefit me too much, so it would probably be down to an Endrin Master at that point. So that's probably how my list would change, but also, seeing how everything else adjusts, it might be good to throw in some gun haulers if they went down in points, to swap out some, do more, rely a little bit more on shooting, but still keep some of those melee aspects.
Cool. Yeah, I was going to ask about Drekkie, because I remembered, obviously, when we talked about your list, you were choosing between him and an Endrin Master. Unfortunately, I have a feeling that just changing Drekkie to an Endrin Master wouldn't be enough of a points decrease. With potentially Endrin riggers and frigates went up. That's
because they usually do 5 to 10% points hikes. So like a 5% point hike for a frigate, it's like what 15 points.
Yep.
So that's probably not going to be 15 points, because they hate things that end in 5.
Yeah, it's probably going to go up
20.
Yeah, 20, right? 20 plus,
riggers might end up going in line with wardens, and then its navigator could easily go to 120. I mean, I not everyone uses an admiral, but I feel like an admiral is good value as well.
Sure.
10 command points a turn. Yeah, right. Like
so.
Yeah, I prefer my 2.0 admirals when they used to bodyguard mechanic. I don't like the current admiral. His command abilities are mediocre at best. I mean, he's good value, but he's just like I'll be shocked if he goes up in points.
And then having that etheric burst grenade on his war scroll last edition too was nice.
That was nice on the war scroll. Matt, was there anything with your list, either factoring in the battle scroll or just generally?
So I am going to go out on a limb, and I'll say I think that the frigates are going to go up 20. I think the engine riggers will go up 10 in line with the Sky Wardens. So and then I actually expect the Ironclad, and I'll predict it goes down 20. So if we consider that, or if we consider the engine riggers go up 10 apiece, that means my list goes up by 60 points. And so if I'm lucky, and if the gun hauler drops 10, as well as the Ironclad 20, or maybe the Ironclad drops a spicy 30 points, that means that my list stays at 2,000. So I wouldn't have to change a thing.
I hate to rain on your parade, but you missed out the navigator then.
Oh yeah, you're right. Now
The
now
navigator that can be allied into like other armies as well, and is really good.
So the other option that I would have is that I could just simply downgrade the engine master and take away his dirigible suit and save 80 points there. However, one of the cruxes of this list is the fact that all my eggs are in one basket, but that is one hard to break basket, right? Because of all the healing that the engine riggers do to the ironclad. So it would suck to have to lose that +1 to those repair rolls, but I have that. And then also I've been thinking about this. If I really needed to, I could switch to a Barak Zahn list, downgrade Brock Runson to maybe an admiral to keep that command ability. So I have a few number of ways. If I want to play the party boat and I want to play the booze cruise, I'll still be able to. But go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, if we're gonna talk about what we want to see, I want to see the lawyer. I forgot his name. The actual
code right.
I want that to be our terrain feature. I just want that to be free. Because I literally do not see that model in any KO list at all.
I have actually been using it recently. I will say it has not been good. But the reason I've been using it is because I've been running a list with in Zon, and I had 2 heroes, and I wanted to have a 3rd hero in the boat just to get in and out of the boat with the 3 units. And I originally had the engine master, so okay, I don't really use him much. What else could I try? And I thought, I'll try the code right. Maybe some of his abilities will become useful. They never have. They have never. It's not happened. And the extra command point in Zon is like you don't need it because everything's like got all out attack on the charge anyway. So
that our book is so point efficient or so command point efficient that like almost anything that gives us command I was like, every time you invest in him, like if you build a list with him, you drop him for the triumph, and it's just better.
Unless you literally just need a body, which is what I want in my list. I need a body to get in and out of the boat, and I can't. I was trying to make it work with Thunderix Profiteers, so I'd have like a hero and then like a unit that I could just run towards the edge of a board for surround and destroy, but can't quite make it fit. So.
That's my ass. Let's pick out our terrain feature.
the rules the courthouse, the rules courthouse terrain feature. No, but I love Brock Runson's model, so that's also one of the main reasons why I wanted to run him. But if I had to cut him to save some points, so if I think the Booze Cruise Party Boat could continue on. One of the reasons why I played it was I saw a couple people running it. It just seemed like a cool list. I was going to be in Vegas, and I'm like, why not just try kind of like a fun list and that's going to either lose or win really quickly. And that ended up being the case because my first 4 games didn't go past an hour and a half. So, what I'm looking forward towards in the future, I know he's not here today, but our fellow gunnery sergeant Max has a really cool gun hauler spam list, and
he stole that off Kron, but
did he really? Okay. Well, then, he's the Thunderer from Down Under. Stole it from him, but no, I think that has a really interesting play to it, and I also love painting the gun haulers in weird ways. I'm experimenting with this cloaking effect, which I've shared some photos with you guys in the Aethercast chat, and it's been a lot of fun to play with that. And I am a little too scared to do that to an entire ironclad, so I don't mind doing that on the little gunboat. So I might move in that direction, or even if they're not super point efficient, just play with Thunderers because I haven't yet. So.
Yeah, gun haulers are in an interesting place because Kron had been doing quite well with basically gun hauler spam, but I don't know if it was tactical on his part because he only went free to it CanCon, and I don't know if he just held back so they wouldn't go up in points, and so that they would put them down in points because I mean generally I feel like they are a little bit pricey.
I think
Yeah,
they could.
yeah.
I think they
Well,
could stand to go down at least 10 points.
when you
and
compare
still
them
be
to a
okay.
steam tank, you're like, you're damn right they're
Yeah.
spicy.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
It's
okay.
kind of hard to justify saying they should go down in points when it's like, oh, Kron and Max are just like playing lists with 10 gun haulers, and it's like, yeah.
I mean, there's a. So like, I mean, we could talk. Like, so for me personally, like debating the point hikes of KO and so forth don't really matter because the power of KO is how their path to victory works.
Mhm.
And their path to victory is like one of the easiest of all the books because they're battle tactics. Like
Battle
many
tactics.
games I've played, I've scored like 4 of my 5 even sometimes just my battle tome. And like literally like having access to a grand strategy that's very easy, plus that makes the path to victory for KO. Like you could build whatever you would do, but if you can score all your battle tactics, like you are going to probably win the game. And so it doesn't really matter. Like the thing is, like if you bring an army of nothing but gun haulers, it doesn't matter if it does well or not. They're still going to nerf it because they have a very good policy on like you should not see lists with nothing but one war scroll.
Yeah.
Like they're really not
Yeah.
happy with that stuff. So it doesn't matter if it does well or
I mean,
not.
it's funny you mentioned battle tactics because it does open up the bombing run battle tactic a lot, having that many bombs.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've scored that one twice at OVO. It's like frigates are also really good at doing it. It just requires a little bit of setup, but like, it's just like there's too many easy battle tactics in that book.
Yeah.
So like,
So-
it doesn't matter when you do points.
So speaking points hikes in KO, like the one thing that I'm worried about is this cycle that KO suffer alongside Ossiarch Bone Reapers, where
we go up and down like a yo-yo.
well, not only that, but like the main problem is that so they get a new book and they're really good, and there's a couple of interesting builds and people are having great success, and so naturally the points hikes comes. But the problem is that in both of those books, Ossiarch Bone Reapers and Kharadron Overlords, is that there are so few units to choose from that
Mhm.
those points hikes are felt exponentially more than a book like Nurgle that I'm used to,
Stormcast. Oh.
Stormcast, where
Oh,
yeah.
there's
Yeah.
dozens and dozens and dozens of war scrolls to choose from. Here you have
Mhm.
a dozen. And so those points hikes are
Mhm.
felt so much harder, and
Mhm.
and it's not even like it's so oppressive from like building a list, but just the number of builds that you can explore and experiment with to be in being a competitive player is drastically reduced. And then you go through this lull where there's just like a lack of builds and this stifling of creativity until a new book comes out. And so that's what I really hope that they just with this extra time be judicious. And sure, there are things that are probably overcosted or too efficient in this book, but not to go too punishing because it has permutations that are unseen.
I mean, I disagree with that, Matt. You should have less war scroll in that book. It was sort of thunderous. Just delete that war scroll from the book for the good of the game. Because to be honest, like Ian's list is like way more enjoyable from, or even your list, Matt, is way more enjoyable from your opponent's perspective than like my list. My list is about like non-engaging. At least both your lists requires you to actually play the game of AOS. My list is about like, I'm not going to play AOS. I'm going to play this separate game called KO. And like, no, Thunders as a concept need to be like completely thrown out of the book and then just redrawn for something else. Like that, you cannot
Again, because they've already done that once.
Yeah, I know, but like you cannot keep making that mistake with Thunders. Like, stop doing it over and over. Just I don't know, make their shooting attacks work in combat and then like drop their shooting power by half. Like, so that way, if you still want to be good at doing the things you're good at, you actually have to engage your opponent, like things like that. Like I don't know, like figure it out. Like I'm sure they can. It's just that right now, like that war school should not exist in the iteration. That's why every shooting war school that's too good goes up to like 170, 180. Like,
I mean, it's not just a KO thing. That's just a recurring theme. It's like Fusiliers at the moment. It's like they switched to when they changed the edition and they made the table size smaller and they eventually sort of brought down the shooting range of a lot of things. And then they're like, okay, well now this unit shoots 27 inches.
Yeah,
and it can move really far. And it's like, and it can do mortals on 6s to hit. And it's like,
Ian, you were going to say something?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna comment off of Jeremy's thing of that's what I enjoy with like my list, which I bet same thing with you, Barker, is that you actually your opponents don't feel bad playing against you because you have to play the game and get in and do stuff.
Yeah,
there's a scrap.
Yeah,
Mhm.
most of my opponents, the entire LVO, were like, I've never played against a KO list like this, but it's, it was a lot of fun to play against because I got to see something KO usually doesn't do whenever I see them. I just see
Yeah.
thunders and, having a bunch of balloon boys charge in and go all over the board and explode and then retreat everywhere and, just saturate the board with melee. All my opponents were great people to play against, and they all enjoyed, at least at the end of the game, they like to see something new and not have to play against just a bunch of thunders.
Every single
Yeah.
opponent I had, except for Tom, who knew my list, was said, "Wait a minute, you don't have a single thunderer?" And I'm like, "Nope, not at all."
Thunders
will
are
not-
bad for the
Yeah.
game. Not good.
I must admit though, I have had people moan about the frigate ability where you just so you're now going to just fight with like 4 units before I fight with anything. It's like
Yeah, dude's
Yeah,
good.
that's
and that's
always
after
like with
after
mine.
I've done the mortal wounds. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
And
just
I-
going in there and disembarking with 6 units and like, all right, I'm gonna fight 7 combats before you get your first combat.
My favorite is when you tell them that, and then you're like, "Oh yeah, my battle tactic this turn, I scored it because I did that." It's really, we really enjoy that interaction. They're like, "What do you?" Okay, that's cool, but I guess.
I always got that look of disbelief when somebody would do like a bunch of damage to my boat, and then it'd be like, "Oh, is that the end of your shooting phase? Okay, cool. I'm gonna heal it back to full." And they're like, "Wait, what?" And I'm like, "Emergency field repairs. So I'm gonna roll 18 dice, and you did an impressive 12 damage, but that was all for naught."
Yeah, it does always seem to be that the first time you use it in a game, when they don't expect, that's when you spike the rolls and all the sixes.
Hello.
And then the next time you use it at the start of your hero phase or something, it's like, okay, I rolled like nothing, but I feel 1 wound. But
you guys will have to do an episode on this. Like, what does KO look like when battle regiment's no longer in existence?
okay, yeah,
that's a real mental exercise. You have to.
I mean, well, the real mental exercise is what does AOS look like as well, and what do they replace it with?
Yeah, no, it has repercussions not just for KO, but like KO is like definitely the one army that like has the most value in the game from having low drop, like arguably by like a long shot. And then like you're right, like other armies won't have battle regiments, but a lot of other books have access to unified, which is the
like Sons of Behemoth and some of the others.
Gits as well, like lots of other armies. And so like matchups KO are usually good into or no longer good into because of that.
Yes, although they could still change it because they all have access to that same ability. So if they FAQ that ability, then it will change all those other battalions as well.
Sure, if they remove if they made drop count actually matter instead of just battalions, battle reg, for sure, I can see that. Because you can still build KO lists with very small unit counts, right? Like you don't have to go MSU like Ian did, but it's just like it is an interesting mental exercise for the game. Like one of the ways we talked about like internally with some of my other friends is like, how do you fix KO? You remove battle regiment. Like you literally makes that army a lot harder if you don't get drop priority on turn 1. So like it is incredibly. Like, I don't know, this isn't, once again, this is not how to fix KO. This is how you give other armies a chance of beating it. It's a very weird, like, starting equational math, like, of how you phrase the discussion. Like, because we'll just have to admit that KO just plays the game slightly differently than everybody else, so they have an advantage.
Yeah, although there are some other armies that can play the game in a very similar way to KO. Sure. I mean, you mentioned like the steam tanks and stuff, and there's Sylvan F can actually do it as well if they play the shooty version and stuff. And they actually do it kind of better than KO as well, because rather than teleporting 1 unit, they can teleport lots and they have longer range and stuff. But yeah, it's.
I'm not actually convinced that Battle Regiment is necessarily terrible for the game, but I think it's just that the fact that turn 1 priority is predicated on drops. And I have a conspiracy. I have a conspiracy theory that they actually meant to change that in 3rd edition, but because of they had a video of like how to play Age of Sigmar, and they hired some like professional
Actors.
board game presenters, actors, and they did, and in that demo that they put so many marketing resources into,
But Matt,
they
that's
did.
that's how the core rules explains it.
No, but
Yeah, GHB changes it. GHB changes it to whoever drops first gets to trade fight.
I understand that. And in the first General's Handbook in 3rd edition, it was worded in a very strange way. And it almost seemed like that it was not supposed to work that way. But the people who did this video, this Learn to Play AOS game, they did that way where the you drop first, that you get to choose. But and so they had to FAQ it to be more clear to that. But I really do think that they intended 3rd edition to not have that, and if I think what you'll see in 4th edition is it'll be a roll off to see who has turn 1 turn priority, just like it is in every other turn priority. But if you drop first, then you win ties.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I think that's my prediction for.
I mean, I think there's a lot of things they could do. I mean, you could just make Battle Regiment or anything that has that one drop ability. Just don't give it one drop and just say every time you deploy a unit, you can then deploy a second unit.
Sure.
And so each time you're just deploying 2 units rather than 1.
Yeah. You could do
and
that.
then it's like you get to outdrop people, but you don't get to deploy like 8 units in one go.
Right.
And then it's like all of a sudden it's like rather than everyone being 1 drop, it's like, well, this guy's 7 drops, but I can get to 8, but then there's loads of people at 9, 10, 11, 20, like whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a trade-off because it's like I can go lower drops, but I can't be MSU and stuff. So
it'll be very, very interesting. First with the battle scroll, and then a couple of months later with 4th edition.
I have to say though, like I think it was at LVO, it was like something like the battle regiment was like 343 players, and there was like almost like 220 bat reg or something like ridiculous. Like,
wait, just to clarify, was there 243 players that had battle regiment, or 243 battle regiments?
No, I'm saying there was 343 players. There was at least 220 battle regiments. So I mean,
that seems low to me.
Yeah,
because that seems low to me. I could almost imagine 240 players having a battle.
I think when
some of those having 2.
I think the person who did that calculation stopped at like something like 280 players or something. Like, it's just like they were just like.
So they just get bored going through. And
I was like, needed to just write some script or something that reads it like the word battle regiment.
Yeah. It was done before LVO proper, when a bunch of people had to submit like at the last minute. So I think that was going off of BCP lists when they were at 200 and some odd before list cutoff. Okay.
So there's a lot of lists that hadn't been submitted.
Correct.
Yeah.
It sounds actually kind of low, to be honest. And that's not a good thing. Like so many lists have it.
It's just the way of the game now, where like there's such a value on who goes first, that like if you're not 1 or 2 drop, you might as well be 10 drop.
Right? 100%.
It doesn't help that there is actually also a battle plan where if you can determine who goes first, you can basically determine the game almost.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't help either.
So anyway.
Yeah. No,
that was a massive tangent, but it wouldn't be Aethercast if we didn't have massive tangents. So I think we kind of covered everything plus a bunch of other stuff we didn't plan for. So that's cool. Thank you to all 3 of you, Ian, Jeremy, and Matt, for coming on the show. Love to have you all on again at some point. Thanks to everyone that was watching live, getting involved in the chat. Asking questions and all that sort of stuff. There was a question that come up about Go Trek, but we'd kind of already answered that. So basically, you need to go back and watch that section of the video where Jeremy basically said Go Trek was rubbish.
Hey,
didn't say Go Trek was rubbish. It said there's a lot of armies that had an answer to it.
Maybe if Jeremy explores his foot slogging KO, he'll find a spot for old Go Trek.
Yeah.
Over a command core, unlikely.
But yeah, cool. So yeah, if you like the show, please hit like and subscribe, because the next show will not be in 6 months' time. It will be a lot sooner. But yeah, cool. Thanks everyone for watching, and thanks for joining me, guys.
Thanks a lot.
No
Goodbye.
problem. Thanks for having us.
And
Good luck to everybody.
it's just an awkward moment because I can't find my mouse. Here we go. Bye.